I'm Jon Leiberman. For years, I was a correspondent at America's Most Wanted, hunting the world's most dangerous fugitives, trying to bring justice to victims and the victims' families. In the next hour, the hunt, the fear, the chaos. These are the stories of America's most infamous criminals and the relentless pursuit that brought them down. From bombing attacks shaking a city to cold-blooded murders inside a family home, every fugitive thought they could hide, but the law had other plans. This is not just crime, this is justice in action. We'll tell you the stories of the criminals, their victims, and law enforcement's pursuits. This is Captured. We begin on April 15th, 2013. 2 bombs explode near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. Lives shattered, a city under siege, and a manhunt that would grip the nation.
And we come to you this evening with extremely disturbing breaking news from the city of Boston.
It was Monday, April 15th, 2013. I was on the air hosting my radio show only moments after chaos erupted at the storied Boston Marathon.
We don't yet know how many casualties there are.
2 homemade bombs, crafted from pressure cookers, were detonated near the marathon's finish line. 3 innocent lives lost, more than 100 injured, many suffering catastrophic injuries.
This was an act of terror, and this act of terror was meant to instill fear in this entire country, and unfortunately, that's what it has done.
For something like this to happen is very, terrifying and sad.
The president addressed a nation on edge.
We will get to the bottom of this, and we will find out who did this. We'll find out why they did this.
Authorities immediately began investigating the attack. The next day, they interview an eyewitness, Jeff Bauman, who provided a detailed description of one of the suspects. Bauman lost both legs in the bombing and was determined to help hunt down the cowards who changed his life forever.
Everyone should expect continued heightened police presence, and everyone should continue personally to be vigilant.
Law enforcement pushed forward, getting surveillance video from several businesses along the race route. After scouring through the footage, investigators found 2 people carrying backpacks walking near the site of the bombing. 3 days passed before law enforcement released pictures of the suspects and asked the public for help. Meantime, police scoured the area for fingerprints and descriptions of vehicles and zeroed in on the suspects, who they would later confirm were brothers Tamerlan and Johar Tsarnaev. With an entire city on edge, the manhunt began. Law enforcement flooded the streets, chasing leads and seeking answers. President Obama warned the suspects again.
Yes, we will find you. And yes, you will face justice.
Later that night, the 2 brothers shot and killed MIT police officer Sean Collier in a shocking escalation of violence. Then they carjacked a man in a Mercedes-Benz and kidnapped its driver, forcing him to withdraw cash under threat. The driver's courageous escape at a gas station was a pivotal moment in the manhunt, allowing police to zero in on the suspects. The brothers fled to Watertown, Massachusetts, where they detonated several improvised explosive devices and engaged police in a violent firefight. In the confusion, Johar ran over his wounded brother Tamerlan, who later died at the hospital. For more than 24 hours, Boston's suburbs were locked down, streets empty, schools closed, and a city gripped with fear. The breakthrough came when a Watertown resident found blood on his backyard boat.
He's coming out.
Police swarmed the residence, discovering Johar hiding inside, badly injured but alive.
His capture marked the conclusion of an intense and sprawling investigation.
They didn't win. I mean, they ultimately ended up making people stronger from it.
From the streets of Boston to the pages of history, the bombers' names are now alongside the courage of a city that stood tall. But they're not the only ones who ran from justice. August 1989, an exclusive Beverly Hills mansion becomes a grisly crime scene. Jose and Kitty Menendez murdered in their living room. Behind the brutality, their own sons.
The Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric, and the murders that shocked America. Beverly Hills, California, August 1989. The Menendez family seemed to have it all. But the night of August 20th, a gruesome scene unfolded inside their mansion. Jose and Kitty Menendez were found shot to death. At first, Lyle, 21, and Eric, 18, told police they'd come home from the movies to a nightmare.
Beverly Hills emergency. Someone killed my parents. Pardon me? Someone killed my parents.
Investigators initially suspected a mob hit, given Jose's high-profile career in the entertainment industry and rumors of business enemies. But suspicion soon shifted. Within months, the brothers were spending lavishly. Rolex watches, designer clothes, real estate, and luxury cars, burning through nearly $700,000 of their parents' fortune.
The case broke open when Eric confessed to his psychologist, Dr. Jerome Oziel, that he and Lyle had killed their parents. Dr. Oziel's mistress, Judalyn Smith, tipped off police, and audio tapes of the confession sealed the brothers' fate. Arrested in March of 1990, the Menendez brothers faced charges of first-degree murder with special circumstances, making them eligible for the death penalty. The trial that followed would become one of the most sensational in American history, broadcast live, captivating millions, and dividing the nation.
Inside the courtroom, prosecutors argued the motive was greed. Lyle and Eric killed to inherit their parents' $14 million estate, especially after learning they might be disinherited. But the defense told a much different story.
Between the ages of 6 and 8, did your father have sexual contact with you?
Yes. He just said that it was our secret. That bad things would happen to me if I told anybody.
Both brothers testified to years of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse at the hands of their father, Jose. Lyle said the abuse began when he was 6. Eric said his never stopped. They claimed their mother, Kitty, was emotionally unstable and complicit. Friends and relatives backed up claims of a dysfunctional home, but the prosecution insisted the abuse allegations were fabricated, a desperate attempt to avoid justice. The first trial ended in a hung jury, but in the retrial, the judge limited evidence about abuse and barred TV cameras from the courtroom. This time, both brothers were convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. In July 1996, Lyle and Eric Menendez were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For decades, the Menendez case has haunted America, raising questions about family, abuse, and justice. In recent years, new evidence has emerged. A letter Eric wrote to his cousin months before the murders describing ongoing abuse, and allegations from others that Jose Menendez preyed on children outside his family. Justice! In 2025, after a wave of public interest and new reviews by prosecutors, a judge resentenced the brothers to 50 years to life, making them eligible for parole.
The murders of Jose and Kitty Menendez turned privilege into prison for their sons. But the spectacle of courtroom cameras was just a preview of the trial of the century. In June of 1994, 2 people were savagely murdered in the wealthy Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. The evidence pointed to O.J. Simpson, sports hero turned suspect.
The pursuit, trial, and aftermath of O.J. Simpson. Orenthal James O.J. Simpson was an American icon, a Heisman Trophy winner, NFL Hall of Famer, actor, and pitchman. But on June 12, 1994, his name became synonymous with one of the most infamous murder cases in American history. That night, Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman were found brutally murdered outside Nicole's Los Angeles home. The crime scene was savage. Bloody footprints, a single black glove, and a trail of evidence that pointed to one man, O.J. Simpson.
The crime itself was about as horrific as you can imagine.
There was so much blood. You have to remember that Nicole was nearly decapitated and bled out on the sidewalk.
On June 17th, Simpson was scheduled to turn himself in. Instead, he disappeared, triggering a nationwide manhunt.
O.J., wherever you are, for the sake of your family, for the sake of your children, please surrender immediately.
Hours later, the world watched live as Simpson, in the back of a white Ford Bronco, led police on a slow-speed chase down the Los Angeles freeways. You probably remember where you were. Millions of Americans were glued to their TVs as the drama unfolded. After hours of negotiation, Simpson surrendered at his Brentwood home. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. What followed was the trial of the century.
The prosecution's case seemed airtight. DNA evidence, a history of domestic violence, and that infamous glove found at the crime scene.
2 people have been brutally murdered, and the evidence consistently will point to the guilt of only one person as their murderer.
But Simpson assembled a dream team of defense attorneys: Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, F. Lee Bailey, and others who attacked the credibility of the LAPD and questioned the handling of evidence.
Remember these words: if it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
The trial captivated the nation for nearly a year. Racial tensions, media frenzy, and celebrity culture collided in the courtroom, all televised, all for the world to see.
It was really the first case of its kind where people could watch from start to finish and watch it unfold and be frustrated because this was a real-life soap opera.
On October 3rd, 1995, the verdict was read, while millions of Americans tuned in.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
The acquittal shocked many and divided the country. For some, it was a victory for justice. For others, a miscarriage of it.
You go, boy! I'm so happy. Yes, yes, yes!
And I think that this is terrible that he's gonna get away with this, you know, because I do believe that he did it. And it's just not fair.
But Simpson's legal troubles did not end there. In 1997, a civil court found him liable for the wrongful deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, ordering him to pay more than $20 million in damages. Years later, Simpson's life continued to spiral. In 2007, he was arrested in Las Vegas alongside others for armed robbery and kidnapping, attempting to retrieve sports memorabilia he claimed was stolen from him.
They were very angry. It was like a takeover robbery type situation. These gentlemen were very aggressive. Simpson was obviously very upset, and he was upset and yelling.
Convicted in 2008, Simpson was sentenced to 33 years in prison. He served 9 before being granted parole in 2017.
One arrest, one chase, and an unforgettable trial. But the story of celebrity and crime doesn't end there. Coming up, the most elusive man in America and a terrorist who sent fear through the U.S. mail. Welcome back to Captured. For years, a mysterious figure struck fear into Americans through deadly packages sent by mail. This is the story of the Unabomber.
For nearly 2 decades, a shadow haunted America. He struck by mail. Deadly bombs sent to professors, airline executives, and computer store owners. 3 dead, 23 wounded. No fingerprints, no clear motive, just a cryptic signature, FC. The FBI called him the Unabomb, university and airline bomber. The world would come to know him as the Unabomber.
Why has this case taken so long to solve? Are there any particular things about it that make it difficult for the FBI to solve?
Well, in one instance, we're dealing with an individual we feel is a loner. We don't think that he confides in anyone, or certainly very limited sphere of people.
The investigation stretched from Chicago to Salt Lake City to Sacramento. A break finally came not from forensics, but from words. The Unabomber's own words. In 1995, he sent a 35,000-word manifesto to the Washington Post and the New York Times, demanding publication in exchange for a promise to stop the killing. The essay, titled Industrial Society and Its Future, railed against modern technology. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race, he wrote. The FBI made a controversial call, published the manifesto, and hoped someone would recognize the author's voice. That proved to be the right call. David Kaczynski, haunted by the possibility that his brother Ted was the Unabomber, turned over old letters to the FBI. Linguistic analysis matched the writing. Armed with a warrant, agents descended on a tiny cabin in the woods of Montana.
Agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the Postal Inspection Service began executing a search warrant at the residence of Theodore John Kaczynski near Lincoln, Montana.
Inside, they found bomb parts, journals, and a live device ready to mail. Theodore Kaczynski, Harvard-educated, former Berkeley professor, now America's most notorious domestic terrorist, was arrested on April 3, 1996. His reign of terror was over. He pleaded guilty in 1998. Kaczynski was sentenced to life in a Colorado supermax prison, never to be released. But the scars remain.
Ted Kaczynski's capture was a victory for law enforcement and a testament to the perseverance of those who refused to let terror win. Next, another name that sparked fear across America, Eric Rudolph.
The manhunt for Eric Rudolph.
Get on the sidewalk! Get on the sidewalk now!
That suggests that perhaps a device had been planted in the trash can. The trash can exploded in front of my eyes. People were screaming.
On July 27, 1996, a bomb exploded in the heart of the Summer Olympics in Atlanta. The blast killed one woman and injured more than 100 others.
I saw the smoke. There's like a little tower over there that I saw the
ricochet like particles flying off the tower thing over there.
The world watched in horror as the games were rocked by terror, but this was just the beginning. Over the next 2 years, 3 more bombs would explode at an abortion clinic and a gay nightclub in Atlanta, and at another abortion clinic in Birmingham, Alabama. Another life lost, dozens more injured. Investigators pieced together bomb fragments, tracked chemical signatures, and followed every lead. In January 1998, after the deadly blast in Birmingham, witnesses saw a man in a truck fleeing the scene. The license plate led authorities to a name: Eric Robert Rudolph, a former Army recruit and a skilled outdoorsman with a history of extremist views. The hunt was on.
The stakes are quite simple. Whoever committed the acts might kill again and must be brought to justice, and we will not rest until that happens.
Rudolph vanished into the mountains of western North Carolina, launching one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history. For 5 years, he survived off the land, evading hundreds of federal agents and millions of dollars in search efforts.
Finally, the break came not from high-tech surveillance or a SWAT team, but from a rookie police officer in Murphy, North Carolina.
In the early hours of May 31st, 2003, Officer Jeff Postel spotted a suspicious man outside a grocery store. He didn't know it at the time, but he had their man.
I was on a patrol in the east part of town, doing business checks at one of the shopping centers. Came around the corner, turned my headlights off. That's how you usually proceed around the building. Observed a male subject squatted down in the middle of the road. As I approached, he observed me and he took off running.
Postel arrested the man, and at the station, the truth came out. "I'm Eric Robert Rudolph. You got me," he admitted. With his arrest, the 5-year reign of fear was over. Rudolph later pleaded guilty to all 4 bombings, revealing the locations of hidden explosives as part of his plea deal. He's now serving 4 life sentences at the Supermax prison in Colorado, never to be released.
From global spectacle to backwoods survival, Rudolph believed he could evade justice forever. He was wrong. Coming up, the manhunts that don't just take years, but decades, as the world watches and waits. Welcome back. I'm Jon Leiberman, and this is Captured. We've been taking you inside the cases of some of the most infamous criminals in American history. Fugitives who tried to outrun justice, some for days, others for years, even decades. But in the end, no matter how far they ran or how long they hid, each one was brought down by the relentless force of law enforcement. Earlier, we showed you how the Boston Marathon bombers were hunted and caught, how the Menendez brothers and O.J. Simpson faced the justice system, and how the Unabomber and Eric Rudolph were tracked and locked up. And we're just getting started. Next, a Wall Street monster who defrauded investors out of billions, a pair of snipers who killed at random and kept the nation's capital locked in fear, and one of the most notorious criminals of all, Osama bin Laden. Just ahead, how each one was captured and brought to justice. Welcome back. I'm Jon Leiberman, and this is Captured. This hour, the hunt, the fear, and the chaos. We're bringing you the stories of America's most infamous criminals and the relentless pursuit that brought them down. Next, he was the king of Wall Street, respected, feared, and trusted. But Bernie Madoff was running the biggest Ponzi scheme in history, destroying thousands of lives in the process.
Bernie Madoff, the man behind the largest financial fraud in history. Bernard Madoff was a name synonymous with success. A former NASDAQ chairman, he built his firm, Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, into a Wall Street powerhouse. Investors, including celebrities and charities, clamored to get in, lured by promises of steady, high returns, no matter the market's mood. But behind the polished image, Madoff was orchestrating a fraud of unimaginable scale. For decades, he ran what would become the world's largest Ponzi scheme, an operation that would ultimately cost victims an estimated $65 billion. Madoff's scheme was simple, yet devastating. He paid early investors with money from new ones, creating the illusion of legitimate profits. Account statements showed millions in fake trades and phantom profits, but there was no real investment, just a growing mountain of lies.
When the reality set in, I was in shock. It took time for the reality to really sink in, because within that moment of knowing why he was arrested, everything changed for me. I didn't just have money stolen, I had my whole life stolen, is really the way I would put it.
The 2008 financial crisis proved to be Madoff's undoing. As markets crashed, investors rushed to withdraw their funds. The money simply wasn't there.
On December 10, 2008, Madoff confessed to his sons, Mark and Andrew, who worked at the firm, quote, "I'm running a Ponzi scheme and we're out of money." The next day, the boys turned him in to federal authorities.
The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Charities, pension funds, universities, and thousands of individual investors lost billions. On March 12, 2009, Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies, including securities fraud, money laundering, and perjury. Judge Denny Chin called the crimes extraordinarily evil and sentenced Madoff to 150 years in prison, ordering $170 billion in restitution, the maximum allowed by law.
Unfortunately, tens of thousands of Madoff investors have been serving life sentences since last December. In essence, they don't even have money for room and board. They have to sell their homes, their possessions. It's very sad.
And the scandal didn't just end with Madoff. His brother Peter, who served as chief compliance officer, was sentenced to 10 years in prison. To date, court-appointed trustees have recovered more than $14 billion for victims, just a fraction of the losses. Madoff's homes, yachts, and jewelry were seized and sold, but the scars for many will never heal. Bernie Madoff died in prison in April of 2021 at the age of 82, leaving behind a legacy of shame and devastation.
Madoff's fall proved that money and status can't protect someone from justice. But not all crimes can be measured in dollars and cents. Some are measured in secrets of state.
The inside story of Robert Hanssen, the FBI agent who became one of the most damaging spies in American history. Robert Hanssen was a 25-year veteran of the FBI. To his colleagues, he was a quiet counterintelligence expert trusted with the nation's most sensitive secrets. But beneath that facade, Hanssen was betraying his country at the highest levels, selling classified information to the Soviet Union and later Russia for more than a decade.
Now let me be clear. Individuals who commit treasonous acts against the United States will be held fully accountable.
The FBI says Hanssen's double life began a few years after he joined the agency.
Hanssen allegedly began spying for the Soviets in 1985, when in his first letter to the KGB, he volunteered information that compromised several sensitive techniques.
He continued his espionage through the collapse of the Soviet Union and into the era of the Russian Federation. All the while, he remained anonymous to his handlers, using dead drops, secret locations on street corners and under bridges, to exchange information for cash, diamonds, and Rolex watches. Hanson's leaks were catastrophic. He sold more than 6,000 pages of documents, details of U.S. nuclear programs, and most tragically, the identities of Russians secretly working for the United States. Some of these assets were arrested. 2 met a worse fate after being compromised.
When these 2 KGB officials returned to Moscow, they were tried and convicted on espionage charges and executed.
Despite the arrest of another infamous spy, CIA agent Aldrich Ames, in 1994, breaches continued. The FBI knew there was another mole. In 2000, a breakthrough, a file smuggled out of Moscow, pointed to an anonymous double agent. The Bureau launched a massive internal investigation, deploying 300 agents to catch the traitor.
Enter Eric O'Neill, a young FBI operative assigned to work undercover as Hanson's aide. O'Neill's mission? Gather evidence without tipping off his boss. The turning point came when O'Neill secretly acquired Hanson's Palm Pilot, which contained an encrypted schedule of dead drops, the smoking gun that would bring him down.
February 18th, 2001. A cold Sunday morning in Foxstone Park, Vienna, Virginia. Hanson walked onto a bridge, placed a package of classified documents under it, his signature dead drop for the Russians. As he returned to his car, FBI SWAT teams moved in. The FBI and the Justice Department announced the arrest.
The FBI moved swiftly and discreetly to effect the arrest. Today's announcement is a result of their professionalism, skill, judgment, and dedication.
Hanson was charged with espionage. The indictment listed 21 counts, including conspiracy to commit espionage and attempted espionage. The Justice Department said he caused grave injury to the security of the United States.
Since becoming director over 7.5 years ago, I've administered the FBI oath of office to over 4,600 special agents of the FBI. Regrettably, I stand here today both saddened and outraged. The FBI agent who raised his hand and spoke those words over 25 years ago has been charged today with violating that oath in the most egregious and reprehensible manner possible.
To avoid the death penalty, Hanson pleaded guilty to 15 counts of espionage and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms without parole, spending the rest of his life in solitary confinement at ADX Florence, Colorado. He died in prison in 2023.
The enemy wasn't abroad, he was inside the Bureau itself. But just as America was reeling from espionage, a new threat emerged, this time through the scope of a rifle.
It was October 2002. I was a young reporter and anchor in Baltimore when fear gripped the region. I was on the front lines of this chilling chapter in American criminal history, the case of the DC snipers, whose 3-week reign of terror left the Washington metropolitan area on edge, frightened for their lives.
There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety.
I definitely have anxiety. I went running at lunchtime today, and I was up on Rockville Pike looking at every white truck that went by.
For 21 days, ordinary life in the nation's capital and its suburbs came to a standstill. 10 innocent people killed, 3 others wounded, targeted while performing everyday tasks, pumping gas, shopping, or simply walking down the street. Law enforcement from local, state, and federal agencies worked around the clock, desperately searching for a break in the case.
trying to give some room to our investigators, a lot of leads to follow up, a lot of information still coming in.
And then they got one. On October 17, 2002, a caller claiming to be the sniper contacted authorities and referenced a previous unsolved murder at a liquor store in Montgomery, Alabama. Investigators confirmed that such a shooting had occurred and recovered a fingerprint from a magazine left at that scene.
Reports that authorities are now looking for 2 persons of interest in connection with this case.
The fingerprint found at that crime scene matched Lee Boyd Malvo, who had a prior arrest in Washington State. This crucial link allowed investigators to identify Malvo and, through his background, connect him to John Allen Muhammad. What's more, cops found out Muhammad owned a blue Chevrolet Caprice, which was then publicized as a vehicle of interest. As happens in so many cases, it was a tip from a member of the public that brought this reign of terror to an end. It happened in the early morning hours of October 24, 2002. 2 911 calls from a citizen at a Maryland rest stop reported the suspect's vehicle. Then, officers moved in. Law enforcement sealed off the area, then SWAT teams moved in. And at 3:15 a.m., Muhammad and Malvo were found sleeping in their car. Inside the car, police found the weapon, a Bushmaster .223 caliber rifle, later linked by ballistics to most of the shootings. Muhammad was eventually sentenced to death and executed in 2009. Malvo, a juvenile at the time, received multiple life sentences. Their capture was a testament to the relentless work of law enforcement and the vigilance of the public.
The DC snipers turned daily life into a nightmare until teamwork across agencies brought safety back. Next, a mob boss on the run, a case I was intimately involved in, and the global hunt for the world's most wanted. That's just ahead on Captured. Welcome back to Captured. Whitey Bulger ruled Boston's underworld through bribes, violence, and corruption, all while serving as an FBI informant. I had a front row seat into the investigation.
For 16 years, James Whitey Bulger, kingpin of Boston's violent Winter Hill Gang, evaded law enforcement, leaving a legacy of fear, violence, and betrayal behind. Whitey wasn't just a mob boss, he was the architect of crimes so gruesome they shocked even seasoned investigators. As head of Boston's Winter Hill Gang, Bulger orchestrated murders carried out with chilling cruelty. Victims found strangled or bound in chains and shot at close range. One victim was chained to a chair for hours, tortured, then shot dead, their teeth pulled to prevent identification. Some were lured to their deaths with false promises, killed and buried in unmarked graves beneath homes.
He just took his time at everything, slowly, methodically thought everything out and acted and planned and plotted. You know, he was cold and calculating.
Even more horrifying, for nearly 2 decades, it was like Bulger simply vanished. I crisscrossed the country and the world with the FBI's Whitey Bulger task force, but he was always just out of reach, one step ahead, only showing us shadows.
This is a career criminal. He's been a very violent offender throughout his life, and so I would say he poses a significant danger.
Eventually, investigators thought he had fled the country.
But Bulger was still in the U.S. In June of 2011, the FBI did a huge media blitz. This time, they offered a $2 million reward, the second highest in FBI history after Osama bin Laden. And this time, they targeted Catherine Grieg, his longtime girlfriend, in order to get to him.
This is an announcement by the FBI. Have you seen this woman? The FBI is offering $100,000 for tips leading to Catherine Grieg's whereabouts.
Multiple tips came in telling cops Bulger and his girlfriend had been living in a sleepy apartment complex in California. And on June 22, 2011, they moved in. Bulger was arrested in his garage. In his home, they found cash, weapons, and a wallet full of fake IDs. The capture ending one of the longest manhunts in U.S. history.
In 2013, Bulger was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. He was killed in prison by other inmates in 2018 at the age of 89. From the South Boston streets to a seaside apartment, even the most powerful gangster cannot outrun time and persistence. Now, the hunt for America's greatest enemy and one who changed America and the world.
Osama bin Laden, born into privilege in Saudi Arabia, became the world's most notorious terrorist. After founding Al-Qaeda in 1988, he engineered a series of attacks that killed thousands across the globe, including the 1993 World Trade Center bombings, the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombings in Africa, and in 2000, the deadly assault on the USS Cole, killing 17 U.S. sailors.
We sincerely hope that people all over the world who believe in justice and the rule of law will join us in an effort to find Osama bin Laden.
But it was September 11th, 2001 that changed everything. 2 planes crashing into the Twin Towers in New York City, another hitting the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., one more crashing into a field in Pennsylvania after passengers fought back. Nearly 3,000 people murdered on American soil.
As soon as it started happening, I was thinking of the same guy who pulled off the embassy bombings. So it was pretty much just filling in a blank for me that who was behind it.
Bin Laden took credit, declaring, "America has been hit by Allah in one of its softest spots. Its greatest buildings were destroyed."
I was at the Pentagon on September 11th, and I watched as frightened parents ran from one end of the building to the other, trying to find their children who were at the Pentagon daycare. I saw the terror on their faces, and later in the day, I saw the resolve on the face of law enforcement. They were going to catch whoever did this.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
The search for bin Laden spanned continents. Intelligence agencies tracked his movements from Afghanistan to Pakistan, sifting through intercepted communications, satellite images, and informant tips. For nearly a decade, he vanished, becoming a ghost, hidden by loyal followers. Then in 2011, a breakthrough. Intelligence pointed to a mysterious compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Using all technology available, agents and analysts watched and waited until they became convinced that bin Laden was living there with his family. President Obama authorized a daring nighttime raid by a Navy SEAL team. Helicopters landed near the compound. The operation lasted only 40 minutes. Bin Laden was killed, his body taken away by the SEALs.
We had several photos, and as soon as you pulled the photo close to the face, it was immediately obvious that it was bin Laden.
Good evening.
President Obama addressed the nation.
After a firefight, they killed Osama bin Laden and took custody of his body. For over 2 decades, bin Laden has been al-Qaeda's leader and symbol, and has continued to plot attacks against our country and our friends and allies. The death of bin Laden marks the most significant achievement to date in our nation's effort to defeat al-Qaeda.
For the families of 9/11 and victims of terror worldwide, bin Laden's death was a measure of justice, though the scars certainly remain.
The world watched as the unseen battle for justice became victory. From cabins to cities, from America to the Middle East, the message was clear. No fugitive can hide forever. We're back with more Captured right after this. Over the past hour, we've taken you inside some of the most intense manhunts in history. Terrorists, killers, con men, and mobsters. We've seen how no matter how far they run or how long they hide, justice catches up every single time. But these aren't just stories of crime. They're stories of courage. The investigators who never gave up, the families who never gave in, and the relentless pursuit of justice that defines America. To see all these stories of captured criminals, go to scripsnews.com/captured. Thank you for joining us on Captured. Until next time, stay vigilant and stay safe. I'm Jon Leiberman.